Yes, here we are.
Well, are you ready, Ed?
Well, first of all, I'm pretty happy that we suggested Inzo to be here today to Tim and his team. I think it was inspiring, but it leaves us with a problem.
Yeah, now we have a great challenge to at least, try to get together an interesting panel discussion, one that is,
exactly.
as inspiring and vibrant as what we just saw.
Yep.
But we have help, because we have 4 great panelists that join us here on the stage.
Let's invite them.
So, you two.
Olav, Boenders, Wagagai, Uganda, please join us here on the stage.
And also Robert Wang from Royal Base, Taiwan.
To join me on my table, Jose Rodriguez from Costa, Florida.
And last but not least, Michael van Herk from Anthura. Well, gentlemen, are you ready for this challenge? Because actually what we plan to do with this panel discussion, because there was not so much time to go into questions from the audience with Inzo, is that we do a bit of a reflection on how his words, ideas, inspiration reflect onto the floricultural industry and the companies that you're active in. So
let's just use the fact that Inzo is still here, because I know that he needs to go back home. So if there's anything you want to reflect on and involve the Inzo, let's do it. He's still here.
And also in the audience, if you have any very urgent questions, either to Inzo or any of the panelists, please raise your hand and I'll come running towards you. Ed will stay on the stage.
Yep. Olav, I would like to start with you for 2 reasons. If I looked at Inzo on stage, I had a feeling I was looking at you for different reasons. There's a physical similarity between the both of you, but also in the way you do your business. So, first to you. You are active in Uganda, Wagagai, beautiful company. We will dive into that later on. But first, a little bit about yourself and what you think about
well, I'm, impressed, and I feel no pressure at all after this fantastic presentation. But yeah, I'm not going to say anything about myself, because I've learned that that's absolutely not interesting. So, but I think the one thing we have in common is the fight for human rights, living wage, and that's one of the things that Wagagai I've spent a lot of time on. And also I've bumped into, it was a very lonely journey as well. So, and I still think in our industry, where a lot of the products are created in Africa or originate from there, it's a key and a key element which is just critical, which I still am getting upset about, that we cannot solve that as a human race, that we buying flowers and plants, and that, the beginning of a lot of those products are not even able to pay a living wage. And I think that's something what I will continue to fight for, because we have 2,000 workers at Wagagai who are fantastic, who we don't do all the things you do at your place, but, we have parties at Wagagai where the joy of people is tremendous, and it's just lovely to see how people are enjoying. So I don't want to add more than that. What we have in common is the thrive for living wage, and that whatever is happening in the world today is connected, I think, to that. The more we will divide our wealth, the less problems we will face. So it's not, I think it's just not a very difficult thing to do, but I don't understand why we can't make that happen.
Well, maybe we should try to involve the audience, but living wage is, if I think about living wages, I don't think it's necessary to explain what living wages is all about, but there's one front runner in trying to get that established in your country, Uganda, and that's you. Inzo, can I ask you maybe, you talk about slave-free chocolate. Is living wage in your world, is that next level? Because he's trying that already for quite some years now.
I would honestly say that a living income is the one thing that Tony keeps yapping on towards the rest of the industry, right? It's the first step that people should be able to establish, just a living income. We once calculated that would only increase the price complete industry of chocolate with 3% if we were to pay a living wage at the beginning of the industry. So I would say it's an essential thing to do. Indeed, it would solve so many more problems if we just paid a fair wage to people.
I'll add one thing on, just for us. Yeah. We produce 500 million cuttings for Selecta and Beenkamp. Those 500 million cuttings create croissants, poinsettias all around the world. If we would get half a cent per cutting extra, we could pay living wage tomorrow. So just realize that, you know, half a cent per cutting for 500 million is 2.5 million euro. That's my bill to my people. They get paid now 60, 70 euro a month, which is almost double than, you know, the minimum wage in Uganda. But I can't pay them double because, yeah, then I'm out of business and I'm not yet an NGO. Yeah, but I think just realize that how can we not make that half cent per cutting extra and bring it down to the growers who then would, of course, pay that to their workers. So that's just in a very small summary in our industry, or my industry.
So Olav, what really has to change? What's the one thing? Everybody's sitting here, the Selectas, the bacon
We
comps.
are the system.
Yeah.
We are the system that we want to change. So what needs to change?
Yeah, no, I can now listen. I think maybe, you know, we can talk about it a bit later, but I think it's joining together and making sure to make it realize that it should become part of the discussion. It should be, and let's not be scared of that. You know, openly talk about it. Why would, you know, I sometimes hear, yeah, you can't say that. It's, you know, what people earn in Africa, don't talk about it. Why? What's the problem? You know, that's the reality on the ground. Meantime, you know, companies have to make profits. That's okay. Tony Chocolonely, I'm sure you made profit as well in the end. So, but be open about it, and don't be so scared about being, you know, also openly talking about salaries and things like that, because that's in the end what it's all about. And if we are able to redistribute wealth to Africa and other places, I think South America as well, if you make sure you redistribute, you will get less population growth. You will have less people, and you know, that will be, again, another part of the puzzle. So
we have a panel here that kind of represents the world. We have Marco from Anthura. Active in the Netherlands, of course, but also in Asia. If you reflect on what Olav was saying.
Yeah, I think we came across the same decisions. And when we started in China over 20 years ago, it's quite a rural area. And yeah, I think first of all, we brought new techniques. So people wanted to work in our place. And then you can teach them and learn them. And we get engaged with the university. But I think also just, for us, it was a little bit more simple. It was our own products. So we just started to pay the people a better salary because we knew what we could get for the products in Europe. So it was our own products. So that's a little bit easier then. And we just started to do that to get the best people, to educate them, and also give them an insurance that if something happens in our company, or even in the area, when they're not working, they were covered by that. And that helped a lot, but it was new to them too.
So what happened?
Also get a little bit discussion with the neighborhood,
yeah,
because they said, yeah, that's unfair competition. I don't care, we are a Dutch company, we do it this way, we feel good about it, and yeah, you have to live with it. So.
Marco, a quick question. You're active in China for 20 years, more or less now. What did you learn from the people there? You have a big company in the Netherlands, you have people there, you have a big company in China now, people there. What inspires you? How does China reflect the values of your company, and how do you bring them back to the Netherlands?
Well, the reason we started there was I was really inspired by the eagerness of the people to want to learn something, and also the way they work. So we also have, it was a long distance. We're shipping our young plants from the Netherlands to China, which was costly at that time, and the market was not so big for those expensive things, but we had to make lower cost price there, and we decided to produce them there. But I think what struck me the most was what they wanted to learn, and also the eagerness that still I think today we're missing out in our society. It's so different that they want to learn, they want to start, they do things very quickly, while in our place I always have to convince people to start learning something and try to get them along and have parties to have them work, and there it's another mentality. So that struck me the most. Of course, you have both sides of the coin, where sometimes helps you better there. The other side, it helps you better in the Netherlands. And by combining those two cultures, I think we learn from both sides.
Robert, do you recognize this about, like, this portrayal about Asia? You're active in Taiwan and Vietnam, and do your people also help to create a meaningful brand, like Inzo said?
Yeah, but first of all, I want to link with Mr. Inzo that one part is Taiwan is the lowest birth rate country in the world, and on the opposite hand, Vietnam actually is quite high of the birth rate. So, you know, it's really...
So you give them the €1,000, yes or no, in Taiwan,
yeah,
or
so
not
that's
in
what
Vietnam?
I'm thinking. Our government should like build up this kind of concept. Yeah, €1,000, trust me, we will back to the last one. Yeah, so this kind of two different culture, actually, we need to learn from each other. And what I found out that Vietnam is, they got a special culture because they're colonized by France. So everyone there is love the flowers. So there's thousands of like peoples who willing to join to floriculture. So that's the difference, I think, with different kind of countries. Yeah. So also one thing is that Vietnam, actually they got a special culture with female. When you go to the factory, you will see male drive the motorbike with female, but drop female, and the male going out to have a cup of coffee. Yeah, so female, actually, they got the power, and actually, more than 50% of our staff is female. So I think female in the future will be getting more powerful and more, how to say, like important in the future. Yeah, that's what my point of view. Yeah.
Oh, good. Renee?
Yeah, I'm curious, well, about a lot of things, but going over to Jose for a bit. Jose, you represent Costa, big company, market, well, inspired leader in the US. How does your way of dealing with the people help your company fight? Because are we in an existential crisis, and how do you, as a company, deal with that, and how do you people deal with that?
Excellent question, Renee. Thank you again for having me. Jose Rodriguez from Costa Farms. So how do we deal with the existential people staffing crisis that everyone's dealing with as well? So at Costa, we believe that growing our people, helping our people grow personally and professionally is one of the best investments we could do. So Mr. Inson talked about engagement. I saw the number's 13%. And this is actually a recent anecdote. A vendor of ours mentioned today, why are people so happy in your company? And I told him, I didn't know they were that happy, but thank you. And so we do every year an engagement survey. We do this internally. We want to make sure that everyone who works at Costa Farms has a voice, that their manager knows what matters to them, what matters the most to them. And at the executive team level, we take a hard look, a deep dive into what their answers were, and we make that into our strategic plan for the next 3 years. So we listen to our people carefully, we stay engaged ourselves, we care about what they think, and that's one way. And the second way is, as I mentioned, we invest heavily in developing them personally and professionally, and that keeps them engaged and keeps them happier.
Yeah, but what is your engagement rate then? Can you share that?
Excellent question. So our engagement rates vary from division to division, but is above 80%.
Oh, wow.
80%.
Yes,
wow.
sir.
That's, I think that's an applause. Okay.
Going back to the Eastern, Netherlands,
Let's take
China.
Renee, just Marco, what do you think? I don't want to know any rates, but what do you think? The engagement rate in China in your company is higher than in the Netherlands?
The what?
The engagement rate in Anthura, China?
Have you been measuring?
Honestly, I don't know.
No.
I have no idea.
No.
Of course, I visit both places, and I think both sides we have people working for a long time, so it says something. But we never do a survey, or I think we try to bring the best to the company, and therefore I think they have a lot of freedom in doing research or develop themselves. So I think the culture itself is just in the company, and then it educates new people coming in. I think when they feel safe, as like I said, we give an insurance which is not really necessary, but so I think it feels overall. And sometimes they find it very difficult because we have a lot of safety rules. They say they're not used to, but we care about you.
I'm asking it for two reasons. I'm looking at Inzo again. You were competing with each other in the Koning Willem I prize, the prize in the Netherlands for the most innovative, most sustainable company. You were both in that same final selection a couple of years ago. You both didn't win, by the way.
No, but actually, I think I won, but it was his fault because I had to beat him, and he had this great story, and we were just a breeder of flowers. So I said, how come we have to change our thing? What are we bringing? Right. We said unlimited in varieties, which is focused on the grower. If you now go to our booth, and it's first time we show it here, we have creating blooming happiness.
Right.
So like what he told, it's the purpose of what we do all together. And that helps also to people to join. So actually it's quite funny because I think it's 3 years ago that we tried to think about this. Okay, how can we bring a better story than Tony Chocoloni? Yeah. Which was difficult.
Inzo, going back to you for 1 second, Anthura, for your information, is a well-respected, well-established company in this sector for a long time. Based in the Netherlands since 20 years, like Renee said, they have a big company in China. Is it easier to create engagement when you're kind of a startup, scale-up, than when you are working in a company that has been there for generations?
I would say every change is easier if you're a startup, right? But that doesn't exclude you from having to take your responsibility if you're a big company. And every small company in the end becomes a big company. Tony's has become an international brand, and we're still around 85–90% engagement levels. So my message would always be, if you want to reach your goals, whatever they are, in our terms they were sustainable goals, you have to be able to do that with an engaged team. And you can only do that with an amazing company culture. So I don't think anybody gets off the hook of having the responsibility of taking proper care of the well-being of their people. Right, and I salute you with 80% engagement. Well done.
Absolutely.
Ed, I want to go back to Jose once more, because you're talking about an important point, Marco. You changed your brand strategy because you're not telling your story well enough, or enough anyways. That's part of the crisis, I reckon, that floriculture is in. We talk about it a lot during the master course. Robert, you're a participant. That was on the table a lot of times. Jose, as Costa, a leading company in the US, the storytelling crisis, how do you get the message out that horticulture is important? We loved the Brazilian story during COVID that flowers and plants are food for the soul. Libraries stayed open all over Germany. People need other things to, if they're stressed and anxious. What do you think that floriculture should do, or should do more?
Well, that's a big question.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you,
Take
Renee.
your time.
And perhaps I'm not qualified to give you the perfect answer, but I could tell you how we at Costa see the importance or in telling the story correctly. And the American market has some differences compared to the little bit I've seen of the European market when it comes to horticulture. But one thing we've observed, and perhaps I'll say more about what we have observed And so, way to share my personal learnings is that in America, plants tend to do well in terms of sales in crisis. So even though there's all the crises that Mr. Enzo mentioned, during crisis, our company and many of our peers in America tend to do fairly well because people indeed find some level of comfort in having a plant. And it's something that is readily accessible, not as expensive. So we've launched a few campaigns from a marketing standpoint. One of them called All Thumbs Are Green, to promote this idea of participating in horticulture. We've joined forces with digital influencers and of different platforms and get our story out through them. And so that's two ways in which we're pursuing brand recognition. And lastly, most of the retail end of the industry in America, it's very consolidated into a few players, which are pushing their brand as well. But we at Costa have invested heavily in our brand over the last 3 years because we think we can better educate the end consumer, regardless of where you buy your plants, and tell you a little bit more about how to be successful with our plants. And I would say that beyond what we do in marketing, one of the areas of focus when we go looking for a new plant in terms of innovation, the number one factor is we want to make sure the consumer is successful with what we find. So that's what one of the premises.
Okay. Something came up to my mind, and that has to do with the fact that I remember very well in the 90s, back in the 90s, this sector, at least in the Netherlands, I can't remember if it was a European study, but in the Netherlands there was an investigation going on the most positive gift you could give to someone, and it was flowers. Back in the 90s, it was flowers. It was better than chocolate. It was better than perfume or whatever. 2 years ago in the Netherlands, and Renee and I are doing a master course now. Robert is participating in that master course. We're talking to everybody from China, from Taiwan, from Africa, and what is happening in the Netherlands in that respect is the relevance of our sector in society. Do people still want to buy our flowers? That's becoming more and more of a topic. More in the Netherlands, I think, than in the rest of the world, but it might change. What happened? What happened to the world of floriculture? That we were the most positive gift you could give someone, and now, the last couple of years, didn't we take care? We are talking, the first part of this conversation was about taking care of each other within our companies. Didn't we take care of our clients? What happened, Olav?
I'm not the right person to ask.
No?
No,
You're too much B2B.
I have the clients. I don't have to sell my product. So
if anybody in the audience wants to participate, feel free to step up and I'll bring you the microphone, right?
Yeah, so Michael, I'm going to ask you, what happened?
Yeah.
I think we lost interest and we were too focused on the technique, how to grow them. And nowadays, I think you have to change because if you see what you have in hands, the plants actually, we're talking about carbon dioxide all day. These things turn carbon dioxide into oxygen. The best story ever. Only by producing it, we still take natural gas. But actually, also in our company, we run solar panels, thermal heat, but also hydrogen gas. It takes a while, but within 8 years, we will have it. And then the footprint of producing it will be zero. The plants taking up carbon dioxide, producing oxygen, means that you have a positive effect. So you beat anything there is. So at that point of view, I think that in hand you have nature, which is doing the right stuff, but you have to tell the right story. I think that we forgot to do. And then...
So do we need to mature as a sector? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I can add, I think, something. We were in Costa Rica together with some people from the industry as well. And I must say, when we started talking about values, and I think Tony Cioccoloni had put those values quite right on the table, I think our industry has got, as you said, gold in the hands, but is not able to tell the story very well because they also don't listen very good to the consumer, So what changes has already happened over the last 25 years is enormous. We can be unbelievably proud of that. And I think we are often not too proud and not too outgoing. So you should be more sharing those stories in a positive way, and that's also about transparency, you know. So it's a very closed environment, I think, and I noticed that also when we were in Costa Rica, you know, it was very clear that there was the older growers were really, you know, how do we get our message out? And then the younger, the growers of the year, let's say the young growers of the year had fantastic ideas, and they came out, let's do this, you know. So you need to not only listen probably to the consumer, but also to your young workers. How do you attract them? How do you make your industry interesting for them? Because, you know, workers is going to be a big issue in future. Yeah. And I see the one thing which I see, and that's why I'm saying I can't talk because I'm not a salesman of our product, but I can see in Africa and with our workers, you know, when they are at our farm, they are extremely happy. They enjoy. I have no clue what our engagement rate is. The turnover is 10% per year because we pay so little. So people say, Olav, bye, I'm going there because I get paid more. So yeah, we know the turnover is high, but we also have people who've been there 25 years because they know that they have security, they like their job, and they can come straight to the boss whenever they want. And we have people grown from, you know, who started at 20 euro and earn now 2,500 euros. So I don't know what engagement rate is, but I think about true values, selling the story in a positive way, and yeah, we do fantastic things. So,
Jose, how's that in the US?
Sorry, can you repeat?
How is in the US so the social acceptance? Let's put it like that. Is there a discussion going on the relevance of our sector, of floriculture in general?
Yeah, I can say that I've seen a lot of news around our sector, and there's certainly some uncertainty on the near future based on how much retail prices have increased over the last 3 years. We all were here during COVID, and during those 3 years, inflation really rose on levels not seen before in the States. Inflation is something not very common in America. So I think this spring we'll know what exactly the consumer base thinks of the new economics around plants, but not a whole lot of talk on the industry.
No. Well,
I'm curious, Robert, because what Marco said, maybe we talk too much about technology, not about emotion. It was also on the table during discussions this week in the Masterclass. How do you do that at Royal Base? How does the Asian market deal with it? How do you communicate your product to the market?
Yeah, so like during the discussion Masterclass, that actually Asia region, we are not really getting to sustainability. So let's say if you buy our flower with sustainability, you need to add up maybe €2 for one stem. I believe in Asia customer, they will say, most of them, they will say no. Yeah, so for this part, back to our company. At least our company still apply MPS. We still trying to do sustainability, but I mean the whole market in Asia, most of them is there. They don't really care sustainability. But during these days, in the Masterclass, I see a lot of companies, they really dedicate to find out a new process, new greenhouse, new way of new functions to really narrow down the CO2 emission or like narrow down the cost of the waste of the packing. Yeah, so that makes me feel like maybe our company really need to put more efforts on this part and keep educating Taiwan, Vietnam, or maybe Japan or Korea customers. That might be the branding a little bit delayed compared with the Netherlands, Europe, but I could feel that one day you will be more important than right now. Yeah, so.
I'm just curious because you all represent individual companies. The floricultural sector is highly organized. We're here on the invitation of AIPH, sitting here front row. Marco, do you think in the storytelling part or the way towards the consumer and the positive side of floriculture, is that something that the company should undertake? How can you cooperate more, better, more intensive with the associations, institutes, organizations, universities that already are in the sector?
Yeah, well, I think we also join in that story because it's the only reason that we will survive to the future. and we have a great story to tell. But the problem sometimes is, I think, that everybody has his own story. And we try to, in the Netherlands, in some supportive groups, try to harmonize the story towards the consumer. Otherwise, we are that polluting industry or anything else, or flying in things. And well, we bring so much more, and we're really working on it, but we don't tell the story well, and that is difficult, I think, if you're with so many people. And I think if we bring it back to government and also the universities, young people, that we bring the story together more harmonized, focusing not just an issue of today, but for the long run. What will be here from 5 to 10 years? Then the story, I think, is really good. But it's difficult. There are so many people. And also here on the show, greening the cities, it's coming, it's helping us that there's more interest from the consumer about plants and flowers. So those things will help. But I think still it's very difficult to bring one story out to the consumer.
I'm just curious, because Michael, you're here as MC, but you're also influencer, as you said, rather new phenomenon, especially also in floriculture. You're one of the few. Is there a role for influencers in this whole bringing out the story and shaping it? Yes, come up.
Yeah, come on up.
Garden influencers, but I think there's also space for like industry influencers, which I think I've kind of fallen into that role in the last kind of 2 years, really. But I think we've talked a lot, Ed and Renee, about kind of connecting industry to consumer, and someone you need to do that needs to be almost someone that comes out of the industry that understands the consumer, and not someone at home gardener level. So I think we need more people almost like myself that can then communicate to the customers and show them how wonderful our industry is. Justify the price of the plants that they pay as well, and help them understand it. You know, when I've been around orchid nurseries where there's robots and conveyor belts, when you put that out there to the public, they're really amazed that all this technology's there, and they kind of almost don't like it. They feel a bit like, oh, computers and plants, they don't feel like they go together. But we need to educate them and show that they actually do, and that it's a good thing. And these nurseries are run by AI, robots, but also humans as well, and that is how they get the plants for their gardens. And I think there's a lot of education we need to do, really.
I always tend to struggle a little bit with the word influencer. Influencer kind of implies that you hire someone, you pay someone to tell your story. But if you don't have your story on the spot, how can someone else tell your story? That's one of the things that's bothering me, I think. And in the meantime, I think we should stop telling that we sell flowers. We sell, like Renee said, we sell food for the soul. We sell happiness. It's just, I don't know, Enzo, how you feel about it, but what you just said, you are sincere about what you... I feel that you are sincere. Maybe you're not, but at least you give me the impression that what you just said was completely you. Yeah, no, but I mean, that's what I think where it starts. We got to be, as a sector, much more sincere about the fact that we are really selling happiness.
Can I add one thing? Feel free to work in. What I miss anybody saying is the very basic insight that for me, plants are the link to Mother Earth, and that's where we're going wrong as mankind, right? We lose the link to where we come from. We lose the link to nature. For me, plants are a tangible link.
Thank you. So, Marco, how do you go back home tomorrow? What are you going to change?
Yeah, well, also a little bit jealous about when I see Enzo's story. It's so creative, and the people around him do amazing stuff. And I see it, from my opinion, they put a nice message on a plastic bottle. And
well, I'm sure you can hire him, Marco. You can still hire him.
Yeah, and sometimes I see also Michael was in our nursery and is surprised what we're doing. But one way, it's just what Olav said, where I think from the past, a little bit the farmers not really telling the story. at going to details and technical things, while we have a completely different story to tell. Go back to nature, love it and things, but one way or another, we are not born that way, and we have to move that direction. I think you can do that by organizing these kind of things, that you are more on one level together, what you're really bringing, instead of talking about pesticides or diseases or DNA or all kind of things.
Yeah, well, what Enzo said, you probably can't change the beginning, but you can change the ending, right? So that's the challenge, Marco. Robert, maybe last words from you, because I'm looking at the time, Michael.
Yeah, how are we doing?
I'm not in charge of time. I'm just keep going. Is anyone in charge of time? Maybe Rachel? In charge of time?
But anyway, Robert,
I will.
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay. So I think all Europeans should keep makes the vibes of horticulture, floriculture is sexy. That's something disappear in Asia. I think Ed and Renee keep talking this. Everyone in the beginning feel floriculture is really sexy. I wish that you could keep this kind of concept going on. And I share one thing in Vietnam. Nowadays, there's thousands of new, maybe just 18 years old or maybe 20 years old, young, talented florists coming up. You can search on like Instagram. There's thousands of people, thousands of florists from Vietnam. Because they colonized by French, but no matter what, they got the vibes of the taste of sexy of floriculture, floriculture. So they are a little bit different with what I see in here. Yeah, so I think maybe everyone could keep going with that concept. And also, a little bit political part, maybe we could use some kind of slogan that flower could save the world, something like that, maybe. Yeah, just idea.
No. Olav?
Can I still say something? I think also that's really interesting. You're saying so many younger people are then into floristry and they're then sharing that through things like Instagram, etc. But I can imagine the reaction from some of us that are older in the audience that are kind of like, oh, that just sounds a bit silly and frivolous. And I wonder if we're not taking young people seriously enough when they do want to work in floriculture or horticulture. And that's part of, connecting industry and consumer, but also, the old school and the new school as well, because the new school will act in a very different way that we're not used to. They might use TikTok, they might use Instagram, and we shouldn't scoff at that. Do you know what I mean? Because it's a different age, really. So, yeah.
But there is a different purpose. We notice it every day, and the group really made us proud. They're all somewhere there, Master Course guys. That you feel that compared to an older generation in floriculture, no offense, but they're really with a different purpose in the business. And that is really what comes out of the course, and you'll hear more about it later. But that's something that always strikes me in Ed, how long we have been doing this, that it's really a generation change is going on. So what do you think, Olav?
I agree, and that's good. Change is always good. I want to maybe close with one last remark about Costa Rica, and it's about hope, because I think, there's a lot of doom and gloom. Enzo started off with as well. But so we have to also bring a story of hope and find a way how we can link, our industry to that hope as well. And when we were on the trip to Costa Rica, we were at the peninsula, which was 30 years totally destroyed. There was pasture and only cows, and for the rest there was absolutely nothing. Corcovado it's called. And we were a week traveling through Costa Rica together with the Minister of Agriculture, Don Alvaro, and he was the Minister of Agriculture. And they decided as a government 30 years ago, when there was only 25% forest left, to reforest Costa Rica, because they decided it's important to take care of the future of our country. So the minister who traveled with us for 4 or 5 days was the most inspiring man I've ever been with for that period of time, and he just showed that, by 30 years ago taking that wise decision and having a young government in place of 40-year-olds, they took the decision and they now have reforested Costa Rica back to 65%. So that Corcovado area, which was barren land, totally degraded, no biodiversity at all, is now the highest biodiversity in the world. It's got 6% of all the biodiversity, and in 30 years' time, they've turned that around. So I think it's important to also, not only, because sometimes when you read the newspapers, I'm getting depressed, and I'm a very positive person. So I think we need to find more stories of hope and bring that across, especially as an industry.
Oh. Olav, this is a message of hope, and Renee and I had the privilege of living in Costa Rica for 22 years. We can talk for hours about that, but to elaborate a bit more on that message of hope, we got 15 guys representing the world of floriculture in this room. Do yourselves a favor. Do not go to the person next to you. You know that person. Connect with other people. Just try to connect with other people. This generation with another generation. And let's just be the start of that change that we maybe need in this sector.
Yeah, but Jose now.
Yeah. Jose, sorry. Yeah, Jose, here you go.
Sure, thank you, Renee. Well, no, look, thank you for this session. I personally would be going back home full of new insights and learnings from what we've seen here. I think we could do better at just connecting different continents when it comes to the industry and think about a global industry rather than this is what they do in Europe and this is what they do in America and South America, etc. We could probably gain more insights that would help everybody. But specifically, I would be taking home something that Enzo mentioned that really struck an important chord. He talked about HR as H2H, human to human. And at Costa, our HR team is called the people team because we don't like HR either. But when I think about H2A, I'm thinking that perhaps there's an opportunity to say more about how the plants that we bring to humans come from other humans and carry their handprints, in a sense, and are really connecting a human to human, and that person buying the plant is actually ensuring that that person creating the plant earns a livable wages, and I think we could do a better job at telling that story in America. So thank you for having us again.
Thank you.
I think, Michael, we pass the baton over to you.
Yeah. Can we have another 5 minutes? No? No,
I don't know if there's any questions from the room.
Yeah, is there any questions, guys? Quickly? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Oh,
the back.
Over at the back. Can we meet halfway with Mike?
Oh, I don't like this job anymore. So many people in developing nations, the people coming to America from the South, are desperate for jobs. I think that's a cultural thing and not a global phenomenon.
I would take the young out.
Anyone? Michael?
Is it a cultural
Robert?
thing?
Is it a cultural thing?
I believe part of cultural things, yes. Vietnam still a lot of people eager to find a job. However, in Taiwan, actually we are kind of same generation. I think it's not that old. So, but Taiwan people try to, we say in Chinese, is lay down. They don't really want to find the jobs. So, yeah, cultural things might happen during different countries, yes.
Jose?
Yeah, that's a tough question. Maybe you best serve for an anthropologist. But look, I think all truth be told, and yes, we talked a lot about negative things going on in the world now, but we're probably living the best times we've ever lived in the history of humankind. Poverty rate in the world today is at its lowest it's ever been. And yes, there's many places where we still have to do a lot of work, but there's a lot of really good things going on in the world and have been going on that way for many years. So perhaps this idea of having to work hard to earn a living wage has eroded away, and it would be unfortunate to think that the world needs roughening up so that people want to work again. I think we're smarter than that, but I think economists will take care of that in due time. And, you know, as inflation raises in some places, and as you well said, some people in other areas of the work are willing to work hard for even a almost non-livable wage, right? So it's, I think it's a matter of time until we level out a little bit as the different economic plays play out.
Renee, I think those people liked our panel, but we can't beat Inzo. So let's, Inzo, answer the question from Chris. Is there a cultural aspect into this? A development aspect, right.
Okay, so if there's no more questions, we'll draw that to a close. If you could put your hands together for this team, I think that was a really great discussion. So thank you to Ed, Renee, Robert, Marco, Jose, Olav as well. Just a little summary, we learned about different working cultures and how they might approach horticulture, how to treat staff and retain and engage them as well. We also asked the question, is floriculture telling its story successfully? And does it listen to the consumer well enough in order to tell that story as well? So loads to think about. And Olav, you said the best thing ever, which was change is always good. And not many people think that or even say that out loud. So brilliant.
Embrace chaos.
Embrace chaos. That's a nice tattoo. Thank you. Thank you very much.